Today on the official Marvel podcast, we take you to the red carpet premiere of Marvel Studios Deadpool and Wolverine.
This is the beginning of mutants finally arriving into the MCU.
We've also got a roundup of the latest news and biggest announcements from this weekend's San Diego Comic-Con.
But this is a character that's based on a lot of history, and I am proud to become a member of the Marvel Universe.
Not to mention, we're joined by writers Jed MacKay and Gail Simone to chat about X-Men from the Ashes, the newest chapter for the X-Men.
You can have been or be a long-term X-Men reader. You can be brand new, you can be anywhere in between, and you can pick up any of these books and jump right in. The welcome mat has been put out.
Plus, we've got a breakdown on the Red Hulk that you won't want to miss. I'm Langston Belton.
And I'm Evan Narcissus. We've got a giant-sized episode of the official Marvel podcast coming your way right now. What an insane weekend, Langston. Both San Diego Comic-Con and the release of Marvel Studios Deadpool and Wolverine.
Ooh, yeah, listen, I can't believe it's finally here. Deadpool and Wolverine is out now. And look, it goes without saying it was well worth the wait. Evan, did you manage to see Deadpool and Wolverine over the weekend?
You damn right I did. Like, this is a team up that, kind of didn't seem like it would happen 10 years ago, and now it's out, and we get to see, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman teaming up as these well-known characters they've been portraying for the better part of a decade. All that chemistry, all that kind of antagonism that fans have seen on the comics pages for so long, finally coming to life on the screen. Was a pretty impressive affair altogether.
Pretty cool. I was actually at the premiere for Deadpool and Wolverine, even got to announce the world premiere in the main theater and bring the cast on stage, which was pretty overwhelming and incredible, but, bucket list experience. And I was not the only one that was excited. The sound that came out of everyone when the music started and the lights went down, otherworldly. And we even managed to chat with the members of this amazing cast of folks who brought the story to life at the premiere as they arrived. So let's check that out.
Was this always the plan, the vision?
Oh God, no! I didn't think it would come true. I just treat the whole world like a trash can vision board.
3 days after announcing it was my last, Logan being my last, I saw Deadpool 1, and I remember going, "Oh, hang on a sec."
I felt powerful. I felt like I could do anything in the world. She's an Omega level mutant, so you best buckle up. Yeah, she's gonna take you for a ride.
Okay, I'm terrified.
I just suspect there's some stuff about Peter that Deadpool/Wade kind of emulates. A normal guy who's at peace with his lot in life. So I think there's a little bit of Peter that Deadpool would like to absorb.
We've written Deadpool for 15 plus years. We've never written Wolverine, so that was special to us.
When you find somebody who is truly not just iconic, but the almost like the role was built for them, or they were built for the role. You can't quite distinguish between the two. That's Hugh.
Ryan said it best. There are moments where it's hard to tell if it's Deadpool and Wolverine or Ryan and Hugh.
Ryan's very funny, and he's definitely cracked me a few times, but it's I don't know, it's part of the fun, it's part of the challenge.
How cool is it to get to play a mutant that manipulates fire?
Not cool at all.
Oh, really? What? Oh, I see. You're lighting up the screen.
Yeah, there's a big.
Yeah.
Well, we're both insecure, loudmouthed, foul-mouthed people, and they say write what you know.
Relatable.
And so
yes.
that's what we do.
When I auditioned, I kept cursing and saying things I wasn't supposed to be saying, going off scripts. So I think he appreciated that.
I get to say everything I never would say if it were me. I mean, she has no filter.
It's just the beginning. I mean, it does. I always said the mutants were coming, and it all starts with this movie, and I can't wait for the show to start today, and people will see what this one has in store and know that this is the beginning of mutants finally arriving into the MCU.
I'm talking about scale. It's this. It's the sort of love for the genre and the MCU. That's the really thrilling and enormous thing. That's the sort of, that's the big deal about it.
I think, that the dirty little secret of Deadpool is that it really is an emotional movie.
Yeah.
I mean, despite all the crassness and all the fast talking and the jokes, there really is a heart to it, and we try to get that into our movies.
It's funny. There's great action. It's big. It's spectacle, but it's really about friendship, ultimately.
It really was a movie made by friends about friends.
the best possible intention, I think, going in to make a movie like this is that people walk out of the theater after 2 hours feeling like they just had the absolute best time of their entire life, and that's what I believe we've delivered here.
This movie, our careers at these roles have meant so much to us. We owe very much to your support. We owe very much to your dedication and your passion. And this movie, I am so excited for you to see because it is tailor-made, I think, for you guys to just freak out. So I cannot wait.
Langston, you were not lying about all that excitement. You know, I think it's really understandable. Movies like these are like such big productions, all the secrecy. And when you finally get to put the thing out into the world, like it makes sense that everybody will be really amped. You can watch the full red carpet event over at marvel.com. But I gotta say, I don't know how all those people were able to keep everything a secret, especially like when we're talking about, you know.
Hey, spoilers, Evan, please.
You're right. You know, that excitement is infectious, you know. But listen, you're right. We should not even be teasing a spoiler for people who haven't seen it yet. Luckily, there is some exciting news that we can talk about direct from the Marvel Studios presentation at this weekend's San Diego Comic-Con. President of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, presided over the event, dropping some juicy tidbits about upcoming films.
Yeah, let's get to it. First up, Captain America, Brave New World. Here's the brand new Star-Spangled Man with a Plan. Anthony Mackie breaking down how Sam Wilson's Captain America will differ from Steve Rogers' Captain America.
Sam is surrounded by a host of very good, intricate characters that help him move through the plot of the story. He's not so much a muscle-bound guy. He's more of a cerebral, thoughtful character.
Kevin was joined on stage by even more of the stars of the movie, including Harrison Ford, Tim Blake Nelson, Daniel Ramirez, and Giancarlo Esposito.
Ooh, and speaking of, we finally got a reveal for who Giancarlo Esposito, one of my favorite actors, who he'll be playing. Here is what Giancarlo had to say about the role.
Can I say it? I can say it. Woo. Wow. Can finally unleash it. I am the king of the Serpent Society. I am Seth Volker, Sidewinder. Woo. That's a load off my shoulders.
We also got a look at Harrison Ford transforming into the Red Hulk and tease the discovery of a new metal in the MCU, adamantium.
Oh, it's all happening. I can't wait. Now, over on the Thunderbolts side of things, Kevin was joined by the cast members, including Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Hannah John Kamen, Wyatt Russell, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Geraldine Viswanathan, Louis Pullman, and David Harbour, who fully suited up as the Red Guardian.
I've come here today to introduce you to the brand new team of heroes in the MCU.
Oh my God. You guys didn't dress up? Well, thank you, but I'm out of here. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it. God, Florence Pugh. You think that girl has your back and she just really doesn't?
And we can't forget the Fantastic Four movie got a new title, The Fantastic Four: First Steps. And we got to see some incredible sneak peek footage, a little tiny glimpse of a big guy. I'm talking, of course, about Galactus.
Yeah, that's not all either. We also announced that Michael Giacchino will compose the score for the movie and got some updates from the director, Matt Shakman, including how the team is looking to bring the 1960s to the screen.
I mean, the same approach to the Powers. We want to do our research. We want to be authentic. We want to bring it to life in a very real way. But at the same time, we also are not doing just the 60s, right? We're doing a retro future 60s. So a lot of it was about finding inspiration from the futurists of that time, especially Sid Mead, and using that as sort of inspiration to build a whole new world that is part the New York that you know from the 60s and something you've never seen before.
Even though they start shooting the movie on Monday, Kevin Feige brought out the cast of the quartet: Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, Eben Moss-Backrack, and Pedro Pascal.
Here's what Pedro, the internet's favorite, said about joining Matt Shakman for the Fantastic Four: First Steps.
Nobody knows that Matt and I have known each other for like 25 years. And we started with the same talent manager, actually, and he almost became my roommate in 1999, but he came and he saw the place and was like, yeah, I'm good. So that's different.
That's a true story, yep.
We also heard from Vanessa and Joseph, about what sort of brother-sister bonding they've been doing to prepare for their roles as Sue and Johnny Storm.
Well, we're both the only Brits in the cast, aren't we, pretty much?
That's the truth.
So we're going to get down the pub and make everyone come with us, because we're filming in London, aren't we? And we're the Londoners, so we've got to show everyone a good time.
Seems only right, yes. I think we're all collectively going to bring an essence that is a family, rather than thinking about what we individually are going to bring. It's a team sport, this, and we're all going to work very hard to bring a feeling of a family to this film. Right. That's what it needs.
Amen.
I like it.
I don't think I've laughed so much in a rehearsal period before. We laugh so much, and it's so beautiful to be at work. And, you know, we're all really so dedicated to try and make it the best we can, and we feel so kind of, we want to do it justice, and it's amazing reading the comics from the 60s and all the way up and seeing this family that has traveled with so many people in life, and feel so honored to be, a part of it, and but to laugh through it, which I hope we can capture in the movie, because when you read the comics, it's got such joy in it. And so I think we can all say we've laughed a lot. We've cried with laughter many days. So hopefully we can bring that to the movies.
And we have to talk about how Eben Moss Backrack got some advice from another bruiser from the MCU.
I got a really nice text message from Mark Ruffalo, because, to sort of demystify the process of motion capture, and because it's something I've never really done before, I was a bit scared of the technology, and just sort of saying, it's just like, making scenes like, normal scene work.
Oh, Evan, you're forgetting the best part, my man. We also got a first look at the Fantastic Car as it flew across the stage in Hall H.
I mean, they got to get back to the UK to start filming as soon as possible, so they might as well do it in style, right?
Yes, absolutely. And your very own Fantastic Car. That's true. And we confirmed that the Fantastic Four will appear in not one, but the next 2 Avengers movies.
Speaking of, we also saved some of the biggest news for last, as Kevin Feige revealed updates on the next 2 Avengers movies, including the fact that Anthony Russo and Joe Russo, who have previously directed Marvel Studios films such as Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, will be returning to the Avengers in these upcoming movies.
When we directed Avengers Endgame, Joe and I truly believed that it was the end of the road for us in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because we had put all of our passion, all our love, all our imagination into the Winter Soldier, into Civil War, into Infinity War, climaxing all of it with Avengers Endgame. That 4-movie run was incredible, and it left us creatively spent with all of our emotions on the floor. In the time since, through a very special story, Joe and I have come to potentially see a road forward with you all.
And it's the biggest story that Marvel Comics ever told. It's the first comic book run that I read as a kid that made me fall in love with comics. It's the reason that Anthony and I are standing up here.
As fans of the comic know, Secret Wars is incredibly ambitious. The magnitude of the filmmaking, the vastness of the storytelling, world-colliding epicness, all of this made Joe and I understand that we would need to make another essential movie first in order for all of us to be ready for Secret Wars.
That movie is Avengers Doomsday, the freshly revealed title for the 5th Avengers movie, and that's not all.
There is one very, very important character that is required, and it could be the most important character in all of the Marvel universe.
That character is none other than Victor Von Doom, aka Dr. Doom, and it may be the craziest announcement of the night. It was revealed that he'll be played by none other than Robert Downey Jr. himself. You guys remember him.
New mask. Same task. What can I tell you? I like playing complicated characters.
New mask, same task. My mind and my body are ready. What an amazing San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, this was a crazy one, Langston. It's going to be awesome. If you want to find out all of the news from San Diego, including everything that we've been talking about, head over to marvel.com.
Yeah, so good and so excited for the next chapter of the beloved MCU. And speaking of new chapters, Evan, you got a chance to sit down with the writers behind the upcoming X-Men refresh in the comics, yes?
Yeah, that's right, Langston, I did. I got the chance to talk to Gail, Simone, and MacKay about their upcoming relaunch of the Uncanny X-Men and X-Men as they move into this new era, which is aptly titled From the Ashes. Let's take a listen. So the new era of X-Men comics is going to be introducing a bit of a status quo shift. Can you explain what X-Men From the Ashes is for those who may not know what it is? Jed, let's start with you.
I mean, the simplest way to say it is that the sort of From the Ashes X books are what comes next after that, huge, what they call the first Krakoan age or Krakoan era. Krakoa is no longer a going concern in the world. Our mutants are now put back out into the world and have to find their place in it once again. And what we are looking at is how they are doing that in the various places around the world. They're no longer all in the same place. They're no longer a singular entity. And so they're trying to figure out how to live. And we're going to find different answers in different books, depending on which mutants we're looking at.
So for folks who are listening who may not be aware, the Krakoa era that Jed is referring to is basically when all of Marvel's mutants immigrated to an island nation that was a sovereign power unto itself. And due to events that you'll have to read the comics to understand, mutants are back in the world, living in different countries, in different cities all around the world. Gail, what excites you the most about this new era of X-Men comics, From the Ashes?
Well, a couple things. First of all, the variety of books is really exciting to me. We've got books that take place in all different locations that have many different themes. The characters are different in all of them. But the other thing that really excites me about it is that you can have been or be a long-term X-Men reader. You can be brand new. You can be anywhere in between, and you can pick up any of these books and jump right in. The welcome mat has been put out. You don't have to worry about what has come before. It's great if you want to go back and read it. It'll just add more texture to everything, but you don't have to know any of it. Any of the things that you need to know for these current stories will be there for you. You don't have to feel overwhelmed by continuity.
Gail, so let's talk about Uncanny X-Men. What do you feel like is the most exciting thing that you've been able to touch and work with so far?
For Uncanny, oh my gosh. It's just the idea that I'm writing this book takes me back. But what I like is that the tone of this book and the location. The location is they're at a house about an hour outside of New Orleans. So it's very Southern Gothic tone. And there's horror aspects as well as a lot of romance because we've got Rogue and Gambit. So it's pretty, hot and steamy and all of that. So when you combine that with some horror vibes, the X-Men and some Southern Gothic stuff, it's just unique and has its own place in what these new books are. And I'm very excited, of course, about the characters. It's got Rogue, and then, of course, Gambit has to be there, and Nightcrawler and Wolverine, and Jubilee is a great contrast to all of that. And then there's going to be 4 new mutants introduced as we go along. And so it's just all coming together, super exciting.
Sounds like a good time, sugar. I'm from Brooklyn. I should not be doing a Southern accent whatsoever. So, you've talked about introducing new characters and having them intermingle with the older characters that we know and love. How do you feel like that alchemy builds on what's come before in the X-Men comics?
Well, first of all, when you have these characters that have been around for 60 years plus, there's updating that needs to be done. There's things that maybe are going on currently that aren't addressed in, our other characters or other books that we've seen before. And that's what I look at when I'm creating new characters. And these 4 new mutants have what I'm calling invisible mutations. So it's kind of like having an invisible disability where you don't know that they're mutants when you first look at them. So their powers are basically invisible to the people around them. And they're interesting and they're youthful and they're dealing with problems and situations in their own lives that I think are current issues for today. And it gives us some interesting ways to play off of our characters that have existed already for a long time.
Right. Okay. So, Jed, what else can you tell listeners about what you're doing in what we call adjectiveless X-Men?
Whereas Gail's characters are, they're in the South, they're in, a rural setting. In X-Men, we see our X-Men are set up in a former factory in rural Alaska, and we'll see the kind of whys and wherefores of how they got that. But in contrast to the sort of Southern Gothic horror tone, we're on more of a, loud science fiction, in parts political drama kind of mode, where these X-Men are very loud and very visible, and they're doing their thing. And we're going to see the difficulties that's going to present for them in a world, and particularly a nation, that just kind of wishes they would be quiet and go away. But also we're going to see, as I said before, we're looking at conflicting philosophies on what is the way forward for the mutant people. You're going to see that, difference in philosophy from the Alaskan X-Men to the Southern Gothic X-Men. But also we're going to see that philosophy perhaps espoused by more, villainous ends, which is what we're going to be dealing with.
Jed, we're talking to you because you're writing X-Men, but you're also writing the Avengers. And X-Men editor Tom Brevoort recently hinted that there's a reason for that, and it's not just a coincidence. What are you able to tell us? Can you elaborate?
We're looking to kind of bring those two books perhaps a little closer together initially, and then we'll see how we can kind of start to build a closer relationship with them as time goes on. As most people know at this point, we have Storm joining the Avengers in number 17. In number 18, we're going to see, the X-Men on the pages of the Avengers. So it's one of those things where, historically, I've always been more likely to cross over books that I am writing because I don't have to ask anybody else, and I can make it work without bothering anybody else. So having both X-Men and Avengers, on my slate is certainly going to make it more convenient to sort of make sure these two books live in each other's world, to help kind of create that idea of a lived-in shared universe as far as the Marvel universe goes. Other than that, really all I can say is stay posted, and we'll see what we got coming down.
Nice. You both have mentioned classic X-Men characters. How did you each go about picking who to include? How did you narrow down the characters that appear on your respective teams? Talk to me about how you guys picked the lineups. Gail, let's go with you first.
Okay, well, when Tom Brevoort approached me first about writing this book, he said he was hoping that Rogue would be in it. So that was the only given from the beginning. And I'm like, of course, Rogue, yeah. who wouldn't want to write Rogue? And she's one of my favorites. So if you have Rogue, you need Gambit. And I really wanted to have that relationship in the book too. And Gambit is how they end up outside of New Orleans, because he was raised for a time in the house that they end up going to. So then you've got to have Nightcrawler, I feel like, because of Rogue and Nightcrawler's relationship. And then you got to have Wolverine because, he's Wolverine. Then I think Jubilee was a natural contrast to all of that, as far as the already evergreen, X-Men. And then I felt like we needed to bring in some new blood to shake it up a bit. And that's how we got the 4 Outliers. And then there's a brand new horrifying villain coming up in this run, and I can't wait for people to see it, because if it's scaring me, I'm pretty sure it's going to scare other people.
Jed, talk to me about how you decided what your roster is going to be on X-Men.
Yeah, so when Tom was looking for people to come in and pitch for the various X books, he had his 3 versions of the X-Men that he was envisioning. And with X-Men, he's looking at Cyclops, Beast, and Magneto, I believe, are the ones that were on the slate. And I was like, well, that sounds great to me. And from there, we kind of started putting things together and figuring out where they're going to be. An old factory that kind of heavy industrial atmosphere as just a real visual counterpoint or opposite to what we had seen before, with kind of like a lush Krakoan jungle sort of thing. It's, just a real visual signpost that we're in a different era. And then from that, I put together a few names, and then actually Ryan Stegman joined the team, and he looked at the team and was like, well, this is all great, but obviously I had picked this for personalities. And he's like, all these characters have pretty much the same silhouette. They all move the same way. Like this, visually speaking, like that, I think you need to shake it up a bit. And I was like, you're right. I didn't even think about that. So we move things around. We switch some characters around. So we have Juggernaut for that big silhouette, and also a character I find really interesting because he's not a mutant, but he's still there with an X between his eyes. And Magic is just always a great character no matter what you put her in. So she's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of X-Men character. She can go anywhere. Quentin Quire, because we need a big telepath. This is X-Book. You got to have telepaths. Psylocke as sort of the other adult in the room, the other serious X-Man besides Cyclops. Then Beast at the base, a guy who is trying to play catch up with his older self that made a lot of trouble and is now dead, and trying to deal with that legacy, and also trying to show people that that's not who he is and they can't keep thinking that's him. Magneto, who has, got a few secrets ahead of him, but is sort of the spiritual leader of the group. And then, Temper, formerly known as Oya, who is kind of one of the younger characters along with Quentin, and brings an interesting perspective, I think, because of all these characters, she's the only one who doesn't miss Krakoa. Because of all these characters, she's the one that Krakoa burned.
Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been really fun. And, I was already excited for these books, but I think it's going to be a great read for everybody who loves these mutants and loves your work. Man, it was so great to talk to Jed MacKay and Gail Simone about their plans for the X-Men books that they're going to be writing. It was really insightful to hear Jed talk about like the leadership dynamics on the X-Men team that he's writing. And, Gail talking about the emotional journey of Rogue and some of the other characters that we're going to see in Uncanny X-Men. All that stuff sounds really so great. And I think if you're a long-term X-Men fan or a newbie to these comics at all, I think you're going to have some really good reading in store for you in the coming months.
Listen, all the characters are great. The only thing that occupies my thoughts is what's going to happen to Scott Summers, the Ruby Court stud, a.k.a. Cyclops. You know how I feel about him. Well, listen, let's keep the comics chatter going, because while you got to dig into the new X-Men comics, I was doing a little research on my own. And with a certain Red Hulk making their debut in Captain America Brave New World, Evan, let me ask you, how much do you actually know about the comic book Red Hulk?
He's not green, right? He probably should have put some more sunscreen at some point during his adventures, because my man is looking very, very chapped.
But did you know that the character's origin traces all the way back to the very first issue of The Incredible Hulk back in 1962? Of course you did. You're Evan. But if you out there want to know more, fellow official Marvel podcast co-host Sade Spence is joining me now to break down the comic book Red Hulk.
At first glance, the Red Hulk is pretty similar to the classic Green Hulk. He possesses superhuman strength, stamina, and durability. He's been able to take on Thor, She-Hulk, Iron Man, and even the Hulk himself.
He can also regenerate and heal from serious injuries within minutes.
But the Red Hulk is more than just a palette-swapped version of everyone's favorite Jade Giant. In fact, there are several key differences between them.
That's right. For example, when the Red Hulk becomes angry, his skin generates intense heat. He can get so hot that just by walking through the desert, his footsteps turn the sand beneath him into glass. He's also been able to melt through Spider-Man's webbing.
The Red Hulk can also absorb different kinds of energies like gamma radiation. And he's even been able to take on the Silver Surfer and absorb his power source, the Power Cosmic.
But the most important difference between the Hulk and the Red Hulk is his secret identity. And before we reveal that, we are going to issue a slight spoiler warning.
That's a good point, Langston. Because when the Red Hulk first appeared in the comics, his identity was kept secret for nearly 2 years. Readers were introduced to the Red Hulk in 2008's Hulk #1 and wouldn't learn his secret identity until Hulk #22.
Exactly. So if you want to avoid spoilers, I suggest you hit pause on this and read 2008's Hulk series. Otherwise, we're going to reveal his secret identity in 3, 2, 1. This is your final chance.
The Red Hulk's secret identity is none other than General Thaddeus E. Thunderbolt Ross. And he's actually someone who's been a part of Hulk's life since the very beginning. He even debuted in the same issue as Hulk back in 1962's Incredible Hulk #1.
That's right. One of the biggest Hulk haters turns out to be a Hulk himself. Thunderbolt Ross has deemed the Hulk a menace since his creation and has made a career out of fighting the Hulk to protect the country. Although Ross has always operated in awe of the Hulk's power and abilities, they're pretty much mortal enemies. And so you can probably guess how he feels about his only daughter, Betty Ross, falling in love with and eventually marrying Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk.
Couldn't be me. Anyway, Thunderbolt Ross is a general of the U.S. Air Force, and he also comes from a long line of military tradition, with his father and grandfather both serving in the U.S. forces during wartime.
This led Thunderbolt Ross to immerse himself in military history as a young boy and even learned how to fly planes and used to barnstorm at local county fairs. And during his first time at war as a major, he earned the nickname Thunderbolt from his troops because, according to them, he struck like a thunderbolt.
Okay, but why does someone who is a Hulk himself hate the classic Hulk so much? Well, Thunderbolt Ross wasn't always that way. He doesn't turn into the Red Hulk until much later in their history. Ross doesn't become the big angry red guy until Betty is killed by yet another hulked out villain named Emil Blonsky, aka the Abomination.
After Betty's death, Thunderbolt Ross is approached by the Intelligentsia, a think tank comprised of Earth's greatest criminal minds, including Samuel Stearns, a gamma-radiated super genius also known as the Leader, and MODOK, a mental organism designed only for killing.
The Intelligentsia had access to a weapon called the Cathexis Ray, which could siphon the original Hulk's power and transmit it to others. The Intelligentsia offered to use the weapon to create an army of Hulks under Ross's control, all in exchange for his services.
Oh, great. Another super soldier program. What could possibly go wrong? And on top of that, the Intelligentsia promised that the same weapon could be used to revive Betty. So, of course, Ross ain't going to turn down that offer.
And so, essentially, Ross becomes the first test subject. And the Intelligentsia, they manage to siphon radiation from an incapacitated Green Hulk, turning Ross into the Red Hulk.
Now, the good news is the Intelligentsia followed through with their promise to bring Betty back. The bad news, now she's a Red She-Hulk.
Perfect.
His first mission for the Intelligentsia as Red Hulk, bring down all the existing Hulk-like monsters in the Marvel Universe, starting with the one who murdered his daughter, the Abomination.
And this brings us back to our final and major difference between the Red Hulk and Green Hulk. The Red Hulk maintains Thunderbolt Ross's intelligence, which includes his military strategy experience and familiarity with a variety of weapons.
Yeah, because despite being a giant red monster now, he's still a general of the U.S. Air Force. So when he went after the Abomination as the Red Hulk, he didn't just use his brute strength to take him out. He also used a high-tech handgun that fired bullets that can pierce even the Hulk's skin.
Yeah, the Red Hulk's experience with weapons mixed with his expertise as a strategist makes him incredibly dangerous. This may also make him sound unstoppable, but he does have a weakness.
That's right, because as we mentioned earlier, the angrier the Red Hulk gets, the hotter his skin gets. And I mean hot, remember? Turns sand to glass just by walking over with his red hot feet. This does leave him susceptible to overheating though, which in turn leaves the Red Hulk vulnerable.
So despite debuting as a villain, the Red Hulk does typically lean toward being a hero. After being betrayed by the Intelligentsia, he teamed up with the Hulk and a few other heroes to take them down once and for all.
Not only that, but he'd go on to lead a version of the Thunderbolts team. Ross even gets to work alongside one of his heroes and role models, Captain America, when Cap later recruits him to join the Avengers.
In the end, General Ross never revealed to anyone that from the first moment he encountered the Hulk, he coveted the Hulk's raw power, and after years of trying to take the Hulk down, Thunderbolt Ross finally got to fully embrace the power he coveted for so long.
You might even say Ross was green with envy.
Good one, Winston.
Thank you.
Man, talk about keeping secrets. I remember reading Marvel Comics when all these storylines were happening, and the big mystery of who the Red Hulk was really was something that was electrifying fandom at the time. There was all this speculation. You know, people were guessing who it could be. At one point, folks thought it might be Rick Jones, who was Bruce Banner's longtime traveling buddy. And when it finally came out who it was, people were like, oh, wow, that is a big status quo change for this character. So it was like 2 years of constant speculation and guessing.
Yeah, and again, 2 years to not know something for comic book fans, that's an eternity. That's so long. The Marvel bullpen was keeping secrets, and the House of Ideas was certainly not playing around when they were keeping that secret.
They certainly were. So I really want to close this episode out with a quote that stuck out to me from Jed MacKay's script in X-Men #1. In it, the X-Men have taken refuge in a decommissioned factory in Merle, Alaska. To gain the trust of their new neighbors, Cyclops invites the local police chief, one Paula Robbins, to come out and tour their facility. At the last minute, Cyclops and the X-Men are called away on a mission, leaving Chief Robbins to tour the facility with Beast, aka Hank McCoy, the big blue furry scientist guy on the X-Men. So while they're touring the facility, Chief Robbins can't help but stare at Hank McCoy's different physical mutations. And not just Hank, but some of the other mutations from the other mutants, like give her pause and make her feel like, a little scared, a little nervous. And Beast says this to her. He drops like a hot 16 right on Chief Robbins' head with the following. We are all of us born different, Chief Robbins, born mutants. But regardless of our powers or our forms, we are people. People who wish to live, to thrive, to grow in the world. Not unlike our garden here, in the face of the Alaskan cold.
Next week on the official Marvel podcast, we're talking stunts with Deadpool and Wolverine's second unit director, George Cottle.
We don't want to play with this in post. So if there's an ability to get this for real, let's do it. And it's been so much fun.
In the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you find podcasts and tell a friend about us.
Yes, and while you're at it, be sure to rate and review the show. It really does help other Marvel fans out there find the podcast.
Shout out to everyone who has already done so. We really, really appreciate all the love. Thank you so much, guys.
We sure do love the love. That's it for today. This episode of the official Marvel podcast was hosted by Evan Narcissus and myself, Langston Belton, featuring Sade Spence.
Our producer is Jasmine Estrada.
With help from Senior Manager of Audio Production and Development Brad Barton and Production Manager Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Cara McGurk Allison.
Theme music by Ida Akbal.
Executive producers are Larissa Rosen and Jesse Berger.
Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.